Kia ora koutou everyone, welcome to this meeting of the Wellington Water Committee on the 24th of May. Just to get some housekeeping out of the way, you see the emergency procedures on the screen, please take a note of them. If you do have your mobile phone, if you could make sure it is switched to silent mode. For those members in the room, if you could make sure you do use your microphone, otherwise people online won't be able to hear you. And just of course noting that this meeting is being live streamed through Hutt City Council's channels. Okay, so we'll go through to the karakia. Please feel free to join me. Whakataka taho ki te uru, whakataka taho ki te tonga, kia mā kina kina ki uta, kia mā tara tara ki tai, e hi aki ana te atakura, he tio, he huka, he hauhu, ti hei Māori ora. Moving through to apologies. So I have one apology from Representative Modlick, and I believe we have a few members, Deputy Mayor Sadler-Footer online as well, which is fine, so it's not an apology, but just noting that she is online. So I'll just move the apologies for Helmut. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Connolly. Any discussion? All those in favour say aye. Those against no. Declare that carried. Okay, moving through to public comments. We've got no members of the public who wish to speak. No. Conflict of interest declarations from members? No. Okay, moving on to the chair's statement. I'm going to keep this one pretty brief. The one thing I wanted to touch on, though acknowledging Dougal List will also talk briefly to this, substantially to this, I should say, in his update. But 2 weeks ago, the mayors and chair from across the Greater Wellington region and Horowhenua signed the Memorandum of Understanding and working together around a new entity. Everyone in this room will be well aware of that. I just wanted to particularly make sure our iwi members were up to date on where that process is at. Kerry Prendergast has been appointed as the independent chair of that particular group, so she will be leading that process. And I know that work is underway around getting a hui together with iwi representatives around what the makeup of that looks like and feeding into the advisory group that's being formed. So certainly would encourage anyone, particularly yourself, Lee, or and the likes, to have a conversation with Kerry around that. And I know that Helmut was at the meeting a couple of weeks ago discussing about how everyone's pulled together. Great. Okay, so on that, I'll move through to the meeting minutes from the 15th of March, 2024. It's on page 9 of the agenda. Any comment on the correctness of the minutes? Happy with that? Okay, so I'll move that the minutes be accepted, confirmed as true and correct. Do I have a seconder? Mayor Guppy, any discussion? All those in favour say aye. Those against no. Declare that carried. Item 7, which is the Local Water Done Well Legislation and Water Service Delivery Plan Update. Dougal, tried not to steal too much of your thunder with my comments. I'll pass it over to you for a verbal update.
Kia ora koutou committee, and thank you, Chair. I do have a couple of slides which we'll put up to speak with us. As the Chair mentioned, we are making good progress as a region on looking at how we respond to the government's Local Water Done Well policy, and that was quite a significant milestone with the meeting of the Advisory Oversight Committee a couple of weeks ago, and from that we've actually had a very positive response as a result from the Minister to that discussion. Sorry, if we go to the next slide. There we go. So just a very quick update, first of all, on legislation. As you'll be aware, the government intends to give effect to their policy through a series of legislation. The first legislation passed earlier in this year, which repealed the former water reforms legislation set out by the previous government. We're expecting Bill 2 to land next week in the House, and with that Bill 2, that will give us a higher level of understanding about what will be required from a water services delivery plan, and also the processes that councils might need to work through in order to establish some form of new CCO type model. The CCO type model that the government is looking to enable will be clarified by Bill 3, which is under development at the moment, and we're expecting that bill to land at the end of the year. So yeah, we're watching with interest with what comes out of Bill 2 next week. The next slide. So just to recap very quickly on what we're expecting to see in a water services delivery plan, and members of the committee will be aware of this as well. It really focuses on three key elements: the investment that is required in the network, the condition information, asset information of the network, and then options in terms of delivery models to respond to that. So much of this is similar to issues that you've been working through with your long-term plan about the level of investment that's required in the condition of the network. And really the issue that we're very much focusing on in our first part is enough understanding of what that looks like at a regional level in order to inform what other options are there potentially to respond to those challenges. So some form of potentially council-owned or council-controlled organisation at a regional level. So we'll be working through that, and as I say, Bill 2 will provide more detail on what to expect there from those water services plans. We'll just jump through. So, and just to recap really where we're at in terms of this process is we're in this first phase where we've now got 10 councils working together to look at potential future delivery models. By the end of August, we're aiming to have a model that councils can consider through some form of engagement process as required by Bill 2, and that will then enable councils to make decisions about what type of entity is the right model for the region, then to take into a more detailed design and delivery phase, which will be guided by the third bill, which is so we expect later in the year. But, welcome any questions.
Thank you, Dougal. Any questions from members? Great. No, can I just acknowledge the work that has been done in a pretty short space of time, considering getting all of the councils into a position of where we can look to move forward on this, and reading the minister's letter, which was very, very positive around the process that's run thus far, was encouraging as well, and I think sets us up in a good position to be able to help tailor our future and what that looks like, and particularly influence any legislation which would impact us and how we set up. So well done. Cool. Okay. So I will. We'll note the presentation given by Dougal List. Do I have a seconder for that? Mayor Baker, any discussion? All those in favour say aye. Those against no. Declare that carried. Okay, moving through to item 8, which is the company and governance update on page 20 of the agenda. And we have Tonya and Pat who are going to come up to the table, and just acknowledging that we also have other directors here, Alex and Leanne, online. Okay, I'll pass it over to you. And yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So a series of apologies this morning. The first one is that it's me that's here. Our chair is returning from a study tour to Europe and lands around about lunchtime today. Our acting chair, Leanne, is based in the Wairarapa and has board meetings to attend in the Wairarapa, and had intended to join this meeting by Zoom. But in light of recent developments, it was felt that the messages that needed to be delivered today were best delivered kanohi, ki te kanohi, face to face. So I volunteered for that role. So that's the first apology. I need to acknowledge Alex here, who's sitting in the room with us today as another director. So On behalf of the board and the organisation, I need to apologise for the error we made in delivering our long-term plan budgets. We missed out the 6% Wellington Water corporate costs for capital projects, a total of $51 million over the first 3 years, and it's spread over 5 councils. We are well aware that this was probably the hardest LTP councils have faced, with terrible pressure on capital and operating budgets, and lots of good projects missed out. So as you nearly reach the end of a series of very tough decisions, we tell you we've made a $51 million mistake. To make matters worse, the councils that had heard our message and had ramped up their Three Waters capex over the next 3 years are the ones worst affected by our mistake. Again, I'm sorry for that. We are, as a board, as an organisation, gutted. Inside Wellington Water, I can tell you that the board is very unhappy about what has happened, and the staff that work with the councils on these issues are devastated. They feel a sense of ownership of the information they provide to the councils, and are just stunned that this has happened. We've worked hard to provide sound, robust, helpful advice to councils through this long, drawn-out, long-term plan process, some 15 to 18 months, and I think we had done a good job. We wanted to be considered a trusted advisor and a safe pair of hands, and I think we were doing that. Now we have shot ourselves in the foot, and we have to start again rebuilding that credibility, and we will. As a first step on the path back, the board has decided to appoint an independent party to work with staff to review what has happened, look at our systems and processes, and provide recommendations for improvement. I'm conscious that there are a lot of Wellington Water staff in the room, and others will be waiting to hear what I have to say today. And what I do want to say is the board's view is that this review should not be a witch hunt. As a board, we are far more interested in how our systems and processes allowed the mistakes to occur, how it took us so long to realise the mistakes had been made, and so long to understand the scale of these errors. Our intention is that the results will be reported to the board, and that will allow us to advise our councils on the steps we are taking to ensure this doesn't happen again, because it must not happen again. We are aiming to present that report to the next Wellington Water Committee meeting in late July. Again, our profuse apologies for what has happened. Probably the worst time in 20 years to make a mistake like that, and the very worst moment in the entire LTP process to find that mistake and advise you of it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Tonya, did you want to make any comments as well?
Simply to echo the board's apology. We are, of course, and my team are closer to it, and we're feeling it very keenly. We've let ourselves down. We've let you all down. We, aim, as Pat has said, aim to be a trusted advisor. In this case, we haven't earned your trust, and that is not the place we want to be in, and not the people that we want to be for you. So, my apology, and we're looking to work forward, welcome the independent oversight of the review, and make sure that we learn lessons that we can pass through to our organisation for the annual planning process, and also to any new entity when it's formed, to make sure that it doesn't happen again.
Thank you. I just thought I'd make a couple of comments and then open it up for questions from the members. So first of all, can I say thank you, Pat, thank you, Tonya, for fronting up and for your acknowledgement and apology to councils. As you say, I would think that this is the most challenging long-term plan that councils have had to grapple with, potentially ever, in modern times. And the real challenge for us is that we're hearing from our residents, that they absolutely agree we need to invest in water infrastructure. They support the work that is happening on the ground to deal with decades of underinvestment and all the other challenges we're all well aware of. But they also are telling us the pressures that they are under financially around the impact from rates. And this type of error really does strike at the heart of the confidence that councils and ultimately our residents and ratepayers have in that work that we are doing, that they support. And I would note that the frustration for me is that when you look at the last 4 years, it's a really good news story of what Wellington Water has been able to do in scaling up and delivering on the capital programs. That is an area that hasn't had a hell of a lot of press or coverage because it's been good news. And this does undermine that really good momentum that has been happening in the past. So again, I appreciate you acknowledging that. I appreciate the steps that you are taking to get an independent person in. I think that is an absolute minimum we would expect to understand exactly what's happened and to ensure it doesn't happen again as well. Okay, so finally, I suppose, as the council who is impacted the most by this in Lower Hutt, it also, for us, is a really bitter pill to swallow. We have listened to that advice around our need to ramp up our investment. As you have acknowledged, there are a number of sacrifices we've had to make in the next 3 years in particular around our priorities and what we do and what we don't do, because our council was really clear that water infrastructure delivery and renewals is the number one for us. So that is, that is hard for us to take. And what I would say is that I know our officers through our chief executive will continue to work on understanding exactly what this means as well. Okay, so I'm happy to open it up for any questions or comments. I think first hand was Councillor Connolly, then Mayor Baker.
So firstly, I'd just like to echo what Campbell said in terms of thanking Pat and Tonya for coming and being so upfront with your apology. That is appreciated. I guess the question I have is, do you think this news could have been better or earlier communicated? So from my perspective, there were murmurings about some budgetary error much earlier this week, in fact, potentially at the end of last week. But I was doing some work with Wellington Water around the OPEX budget, and I assumed it was to do with that. Turns out it was this much bigger CapEx budget, but obviously there was an understanding that something was wrong long before it was fully explained to us exactly what had gone on. And I just wonder whether you should have come to us earlier once you understood that there was an error, even if you didn't fully understand the nature of that error. I'm also conscious that Greater Wellington had its LTP deliberations yesterday, and so in order for us to put more money into Wellington Water to compensate for the 6%, we needed to have that discussion yesterday in public, and that's what we did. But there were other people, other councillors who weren't aware of the situation, and so it sort of ended up being outed at the Greater Wellington Regional Council meeting, which was less than an ideal way to break that news to everybody. So I just wonder if you have any reflections on the comms, both the timing and how that played out.
So thank you for the question. That's one of the points that we want to look at in the review, and I specifically talked about how long it took us to realise we'd made a mistake, and that's in terms of months, and then too long to understand the scale of the error. That yes, it was discovered earlier, but it was thought that it was not significant. That's my understanding. But it's something that we do want to look into in more detail, and we will certainly be reporting back on the lessons learnt there.
Just by way of a follow-up, one of the key messages from the fluoride review was that Wellington Water needed to be more proactive with getting those conversations up the line and to the owners and governors, and appreciate that situation might not have replayed itself exactly in how this happened, but it would be unfortunate if that was a lesson that we'd already identified, that we needed to be better at identifying those risks and escalating them, and to see that not happening again in this situation.
Yeah, and one of the phrases we talk about a lot at the board table is the phrase from that report, learned helplessness and a determination that won't be us.
I guess, sorry, I will leave it after this, but one of the things I've been really conscious of is not letting that fluoride review die, because a number of times we've had papers come to this council table that have tried to close off that review. And whilst the fluoride situation from a technical perspective has been resolved, I am yet to be convinced that the lessons that were identified through that review have actually been embedded in the organisation. And I think this may be proof that that has not occurred. And so we cannot just put it to bed because the technical fluoride issues have been resolved. We need to continue ensuring that the bigger picture systemic issues are incorporated into the organisation and that we learn, and things like the learned helplessness don't continue.
Mayor Baker, then Mayor Whānau.
Thank you, Pat. I'm trying to be civil because I actually just want to jump over the side of the table. I'm very angry. $10 million to Porirua over 3 years is huge. I understand you knew 3 or 4 weeks ago. Am I right saying that? I'd like a time frame because I'm really, really angry. I've been a supporter of Wellington Water around the table for the whole time. We have, what your staff do on the ground for us has been amazing, and it does. I'm very stroppy about the time frame and coming back to us, especially with our long-term plans. I'm already grumpy because I've got a surge tank that's gone from 48 to 68 to 97 million. So I'm pretty stroppy at the moment with Wellington Water. So to have this come, and I know it's not from the lower levels and I know it's higher up, and I thank you for doing a board inquiry into it, but really it's the time frame for me. How long have you been sitting on this before you told us?
So, Anita, I feel for you. You and your team have put their heart and soul into Porirua and for water, and this is the bit we feel. It's water outcomes that we have promised over a 3-year period that we will be able to deliver less than we promised. So, acknowledged. The timing, again, we need to look into this in the review. But we were certain of the impact on Friday, and then we started communicating Monday to each of the CEs. So that is the time frame. There is a period in which we internally investigated, A, whether the issue was real and live, and B, how much it cost. And there is some questions around whether we should have been transparent at that point. And we will look at that in the review. But the moment we knew how much, we sent it up the tree.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right, thank you. I just feel like I've had sand kicked in my face, and we've got leaking sewage, and another 10 million would have done it. So, yeah, grumpy. Thank you.
Mayor Whānau, then Mayor Guppy.
How about now? Fabulous. Tonya and Pat, thank you for fronting up, and Pat in particular, I think you're in the most horrible seat at the moment. So, look, I will express my disappointment on behalf of Wellington City, but I think you know that. But what I would like to see is, I think the independent review is a great idea. I would like us as members to feed into that, terms of reference, appointments, so forth. I think, we will want some accountability seen here. And just kind of related to this, but on the timing, my understanding is our officers were also meant to work on a bunch of other KPIs at some point around now, and that has been cancelled. That needs to be remedied immediately, just to, I think, will help rebuild trust in this, in this relationship. Thank you.
Mayor Guppy.
Yeah, thanks, Campbell. I'm not surprised. We've gone from crisis to crisis with this organisation, and yet we have another inquiry, another review, and that in my time sitting around this table, we seem to have one every year. And I have real concerns about the review. about Wellington Water running it. They'll set the terms of reference, they'll control the tempo of the thing, they'll control the whole process, and so we need to have some real input if there's going to be a genuine inquiry. I'd like this committee to put the Wellington City report that was how long ago? 6 months ago, that we brushed under the carpet at this committee, brushed it under the carpet. There's an independent starting point, and I think that should be put on the table, that this committee works through that to start with. We don't need to go through a whole other inquiry at tens of thousands of dollars. It may be the consequence of it, but we need to have a look at that independent report done by very, very outstanding consultants from Melbourne, and this committee refused to accept it. We need to put that on the table now and work our way through it.
Just members of the public, we can hear you, so if you could just please, thank you, show some respect. Okay, any comment?
So at the start, I emphasised that the report will be led by the board and not the organisation. We would be making sure it is an independent report. We don't have terms of reference yet with board members scattered over the globe, but it's something that I'll be working on over the weekend. I intend to have those to our chair when he's fit and able on Monday, and I'm confident that we're very happy to share those with the chair of this group to make sure that they do cover the areas that are being highlighted as areas of concern. And we're also happy to share with the chair the person we're proposing to use for that work, which when that name is known, I think you'll be happy that it is an independent set of eyes, a genuinely independent set of eyes. We, as a board, want this organisation to run well and to be well respected, and to regain that feeling of being a trusted advisor. Be assured there's nothing we want more.
Yep. And certainly happy to engage with the members of this committee who wish to be involved in that if I'm working through myself as chair. Councillor Connolly?
I was just going to add that essentially that I think given the context in which we're operating, it would be valuable for us to be able to input into that terms of reference and also be clearly part of the review in whatever form we deem is appropriate.
Yep, thank you. Any other comments, questions? No? Okay. What we'll do now is move through to the rest of the report. So we'll park that matter, package it up, and obviously there is quite a bit more to report back on and some steps that have been taken from this discussion, which we'll follow up on. So I'll pass it back over, Pat, Tonya, for the rest of the report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I've been given Nick's speech notes, and I don't work well from Nick's speech notes, so this will be a mixture of his words and some of mine. So thank you for your feedback on the draft statement of intent. The board has asked the staff to reflect on this and finalising the document, and we'll be meeting in early July to adopt it. That document will also reflect any significant changes in adopted LTPs from the draft out for consultation. Our finances are going well, and we forecast finishing this financial year within approved OPEX budgets. We've also reduced our operating budgets by 5% for the coming 3 years in line with the belt tightening that councils have had to do. Though I suspect that's not as much as councils have had to do, but we are an organisation already under pressure, so that was the best that we could achieve. The other issue that I want to talk about is water security for the region. The Wellington region has a 1 in 50-year drought security target. Now that's not high for a metropolitan area the size of Wellington. I suspect most provincial councils have a 1 in 50-year drought security target. Auckland has a 1 in 200-year drought security target. At the moment, our drought security is 1 in 13 years. That's what we've fallen to. And this needs to be at the forefront of our minds as we manage our resources and as councils work on their water services delivery plan. The challenge is, and here's me deviating from the speech notes. When I was a water engineer and then as a chief executive, one of the things that you watch is your drought security. And as your average daily demand starts approaching the limit where your drought security is reduced, you start looking at your next upgrade project. Because these upgrade projects typically take 5 or 10 years to bring on stream. And you don't want to be responsible for running your town, your city out of water. Because the one thing that happens when that does occur, or if it does occur, is people start asking, how did this happen? Why this is allowed to happen? So typically, water engineers take a pretty conservative view of protecting that drought security. I was a water engineer when Auckland went through its drought in the late 1990s. For 18 months, they were closing businesses. You can't have a brownout, you can't turn off water to a suburb because then the hydrants don't work. Water must continue flowing. And I remember that it was a mark of shame if you were driving around Auckland with a clean car. You almost had to put a sign in the window saying, I've been to Hamilton, I've washed my car. They would have paid any amount of money to keep their water flowing. And soon after that, they adopted the 1 in 200 year drought security and built the Waikato River pipeline. So it's important we're aware of where Wellington sits and the drought level risk it should aim for, which is 1 in 50 years, and once we've got back to that, maybe consider improving it. The key element of improving our position will be more efficiently managing our water, and we know that councils are acutely aware of this and taking steps limited by affordability to do so in this LTP. This will include better water conservation. If you use less water, then your average daily demand drops and your drought security improves. So the steps there are water metering and volumetric charging and a much higher rate of renewals of our pipes. Alongside this will be better storage through an expanded system of dams and storage lakes. Additional supply options may also need to be progressed. The project urgently underway by Wellington Water to improve the DAF at Te Marua this year will hopefully assist us in increasing the amount of water that can be produced for supply. This will likely have short-term benefits to reduce risk of acute shortage, but it doesn't answer the medium to long-term issues around our drought security. Now, just bear with me. I just want to explain the difference between an acute water shortage and long-term drought security. So this last summer, we have faced the risk of, because demand has been steadily increasing and our pipes are leaking so badly, that we could not get enough water in the top of the pipe to meet demand. And one of the major restrictions has been the water treatment plant. If you consider you've got a jug and a funnel into the pipe that supplies the Wellington metro region, the water treatment plant is the funnel, and the funnel has been too small. So we're in the process of increasing the size of that funnel. We're increasing it from the ability to deliver 80,000 cubic metres a day of water to 140,000 cubic metres of water per day. Sorry, I talk in old-fashioned terms, I use cubic metres. Each cubic metre weighs a tonne, so that's 80,000 tonnes a day to 140,000 tonnes of water a day will go through that plant. So that's great, the funnel is bigger. But what we haven't done is made the jug any bigger. The jug is the stored water in the McCaskill lakes, it's the water in our aquifers, it's the flow in the river. So all of a sudden we've got a funnel that can take a lot of water, and our drought security, the jug, is no bigger. And now that we've increased the size of the treatment plant, it can suck water out of the McCaskill lakes a lot faster than it has in the past. We acknowledge the significant additional resources that councils have added to reactively respond to water leaks. This is making a difference, reducing the risk of acute water shortage for the coming year. However, as Wellington Water has stated previously, the best way to keep more water in the pipes is to fund renewals to reduce leaks. When renewals don't increase, leaks will. And yes, we're all aware that there's more to when you're assessing the asset condition of pipes, there's more to it than age. But as the average age of our network continues to increase, those pipes will leak more, and the cost of responding to those leaks will increase. And those leaks will get harder to fix because old pipes don't like getting dug up. They don't like getting shaken. The region will need the resources to better plan for drought, understand its implications, and the steps that can be taken to reduce its likelihood. One of the concerns we have is the drought security situation could well be a serious inhibitor of growth before long. And I note that the Water Services Delivery Plan, one of its objectives is to make sure that the water supply can unlock housing growth. And I think at the moment there is a risk that it could be a handbrake. Wellington Water has some understanding of the situation, and the team has done a good job with the little resource they have. However, the strategic regional understanding and the associated response is not currently funded. The advice to the committee is that should be a priority for a new water entity, but that this organisation will not lose sight of those issues in the meantime. Thank you.
Okay, is there any questions on what Pat has covered? And then we'll pass it over to Tonya, the company side. No, just to acknowledge, welcome Rawati, great to have you here as well. Okay, Tonya.
Got it. There's a mix of good and bad news, as always, in our quarterly update. But to lead out with some new news, the additional funding that each of our metropolitan councils have tipped into leakage management has proven extremely successful. And Kevin's just given me the figures today that our backlog currently stands at 1,850 leaks, whereas in February it was over 3,500. So we have halved that number of backlog. So thank you all for tipping in funding. We've made good use of it, and you can see the impact that that has had. So thank you. It's good to move finally out of water restrictions, but noting that we are getting ourselves ready for next year, both in terms of the work with Taumata Arawai on your behalf to look at how we are managing down to our target of 7.4 megalitres per day savings by next summer, but also in terms of working with you around our leakage, storage and pressure management activities. The moving to BAU for water restrictions late, it's interesting, isn't it? But here's how climate works. This is the first actually decent spell of rain we've had since November. You know, and you look at the NIWA stats, and that's a really interesting thing for the region. So, and I know the South Wairarapa has had a more extreme dry summer, and they've also had more extreme rain over the last couple of weeks. So this is what we need to get used to as we go forward. On the people front, our engagement has dropped in the last quarter. That's not surprising, really. The uncertainty about what Wellington Water looks like in the future and the new council entity that's being formed plays on people's minds. We want to make sure that those people are available for the new council entity, so we do work hard on engagement and we'll continue to do that. We had some really serious near misses in the health and safety front. There were 2 service strikes and a fall in a confined space that we've worked through. Both of those could have ended in fatalities, so they have been investigated fully and reported up to the board. But we always make sure that all those learnings are shared both across our supplier whānau and this team. So if anybody wants more information on those, as always, happy to share. The capital program is delivering 251 million as at the end of April. So again, going great guns, we are looking to have a $330 million year. So again, a 30 to 40% uplift on year. That all results in good water outcomes for your cities and towns. Some good news in that as well is that we've got 3 major projects that are heading to be ahead of schedule. The Porirua wastewater tank, the Taranaki Street rising main, and the Kaitoki pipe bridge are all due to finish early, which means there are savings that can be tipped back into the coffers, which is great news. And there's a couple of things on the wastewater side. One is we remain concerned, and you can see that in our paper about the state of our wastewater treatment plants across the region. There is a lot of activity to manage them. There is funding in the LTPs for some big projects to help fix that. And we're also working with Veolia on lifting performance in the operations space for the metropolitan treatment plants. But I'm going to finish on some good environmental news. We have a outfall to land in South Wairarapa that for the first time since we've been looking after South Wairarapa's wastewater has gone 100% to land. And that's the way of the future for wastewater, and it's a great outcome for the team over there that have worked hard with council. Thank you.
Any questions for Tonya? Councillor Connolly.
Two partai from me. Firstly, the health and safety incidents were a bit alarming in this report. So not only were there some serious incidents, but there were also some of the lead indicators were up throughout the report. So I'm just wondering if there's anything you can attribute that to, and whether you think that is actually connected to kind of low staff morale, or whether it's just, what you think is behind that.
Yeah, that's a really good question, Ros. And there are a number of factors that we attribute to it. One is the size and scale now of the activity that we undertake for the region. We are an employer and subcontractor of over 1,000 people, so that does mean our stats are up. We encourage reporting, and we are seeing across the board that people are reporting in, so some of those leading indicators going up is good news. We are seeing staff morale drop, and where that can come about is inattention. It wasn't a factor in each of these three serious ones, but I suspect it is in some of the smaller ones. So we have got the health and safety team working hard on well-being activities, both with ourselves and with our supplier whānau.
Just, you mentioned that the scale of Wellington Water, particularly in the capital program space, has increased, and so now we're responsible for a lot more people than we were once upon a time.
That's right.
Do you think our health and safety practices are still appropriate given the size and scale of the organisation? Should we be looking at a different way of organising our health and safety and potentially putting more priority onto it?
So my answer is always the same on health and safety, no. We are relentless in our pursuit of excellence, and we will never get there. We need to be constantly on alert, and are, around our practices and the people we engage on it and how we go about it, and we shift and we improve constantly. So yes.
I guess improve constantly, we haven't seen that in this month's reporting. So is there something we need to do? I'll let you ponder that. My other partai is in relation to the leaks that we are stopping. So you've outlined the the backlog of leaks that we've cleared, and that's a really good number, obviously, to keep track of. But I guess in the leak space, ultimately, the thing we're trying to do is reduce the amount of water being lost to leaks. And like at a certain point, we seem to not actually be making any headway on that. And I was assured that that was because we were only plugging the leaks basically at the rate at which the water was flowing out of them. And if we increased our investment in leak management, we would actually see a decrease in the water being lost. Can we have some evidence that there is a decrease in the water being lost? I really want to keep track of that, especially as we've got councils putting quite a bit more money into leaks over the next year. I really want to see that number go down. Like, I know it makes sense that if we plug the leaks, there'll be less water lost to it, but I want to see that stat.
So the stat, we do have those stats, Ros, and I'm sorry I don't have them on hand. They did come out, it was sent to my note on Friday, it actually contained how many megalitres we assessed that saved, so my apologies for that. Yep.
Any other questions?
Just before we close off with Tonya and Pat, I just wondered if we could jump back to the previous conversation we had around the terms of reference, because I was a little uncomfortable at where we left our discussion in terms of the involvement of councils in that terms of reference, both setting the terms of reference and participating, and I wondered if a formal recommendation would be appropriate.
I mean, I'm in the hands of the committee. I think that we've made our expectations clear, and I think Pat's response made it clear of how we would do that. But I mean, it's really up to the committee. If you've got a recommendation you want to put, I think it should specifically just focus on this issue. I think there will be much more probably disagreement around trying to build that into the broader issue around reports from previous years. Mia Bana?
Yeah, I just want to agree with Ros. I would personally like to formally have this as an action to take away, because with all due respect, we need much more involvement, whether it's even signing it off. It is our money when it comes to the terms of reference.
Can I suggest we take a 2-minute break and we'll work on a recommendation and come back? Okay. Okay, thank you. Run? Okay. Actually, we'll just get this typed up first. Sorry. Which is notes and receives the report, and this is to capture the conversation we've just had. So it will be agrees that the terms of reference for the review of the CapEx budget understatement will be developed by the Wellington Water Board and shared with the Wellington Water Committee for input, noting that the board will sign off the final terms of reference. Okay, so I'm happy to move that. Seconder, Mayor Whānau. Okay, any discussion? All those in favour say aye. Those against, no. Declare that carried. Thank you. Okay. Moving through to item 9, which is the acute water shortage update. Charles, welcome. Pass it over to you.
Thank you, Chair. I'll take the report as read. I'll just point out that we're on track to meet all of Taumata Arawai's reporting requirements, and we'll make sure that those reports that we are obliged to send through to the regulator are shared with the councils, and they'll come up through to this committee. That will demonstrate progress of each council against the water demand that was being asked about before. There'll be a easy to see graph that will demonstrate that. While the focus is on water loss measures, and that's what Taumata Arawai have asked us to concentrate on, they're also keeping an eye on the DAF plant quite correctly, as that's scheduled at the moment to be bring 20 MLD available in January, and that will make a substantial difference to the risk profile of the acute water shortage. So we're not losing the track of that while we focus and report mainly on the water loss. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Charles? Councillor Connolly.
So I'm just checking I'm on the right paper. So Taumata Arawai wouldn't accept the DAF work as contributing to our water savings because of the uncertainty of when it's going to come through. Is that right?
They wouldn't accept that we can de-risk it by only concentrating on the supply side, given the uncertainty and the closeness of the DAF delivery to the acute water shortage period, and therefore they required us to report on the water loss activities, which are on the other side of the equation as well. They acknowledge the DAF and its role, and that it is a bit of a game changer in terms of the yearly acute water shortage, but they know long-term the water loss is the area of main concern.
So I was a little bit surprised by that. I'm actually hopeful that we'll get the DAF plant coming online, maybe even the end of this year, but it will certainly be over the summer period, right? And this year our acute water shortage lasted almost, till May. So it will definitely be at the tail end of that period when we've got this operating. And so I can't see how they can kind of discount that to the extent that it comes across in this report. And I think it will be a game changer for the short term.
Yeah, I wouldn't have, if I've given the impression that Taumata Arawai discounted it like that to that extent, that wouldn't be fair.
Okay.
They definitely see it as a crucial contribution that will come, but the acute crisis could occur before it. So therefore they say we must keep the balanced view of the water loss and while we track that extra supply.
I'm not trying to say that the water loss component isn't important. Just actuarially, we know that February is really when things start to become problematic.
Yes. Yeah.
Any other questions? No, thank you, Charles. Okay, so I'll move that the committee receives and notes the report. I have a seconder. Councillor Connolly, any discussion? All those in favour say aye. Those against no. Declare that carried. Sticking with you, Charles, report of annual measures to Te Mata Arawai.
The purpose of this paper was just to advise the committee that we've met the reporting requirement of Taumata Arawai. It's the first time we've reported the annual measures, and the feedback from them is they're very happy. We're probably a bit of an exemplar for meeting the requirements and so fulsomely knowing our level of compliance. So it's really positive that we retain the confidence of our regulator. The main thing to note, while there's a lot of technicality, is that they take these findings, the annual findings, and they summarise them. And I've given you an indication of their feedback, and they, so in their annual summary report that Taumata Arawai is starting to draft, you can get indication that they're pretty happy with what we're doing. The one exception being that shows up there is that contact time for chlorine and Waterloo, which is well socialised with them and well understood.
Any questions? Councillor Connolly.
I did read this paper when I got back from the excellent Hutt Valley Sports Awards last night, and so it was late and I was tired, but I didn't understand that table at number 8. So for our water supply looks very non-compliant. According to that table, 47%, 46% non-compliant. That's just to do with that doesn't take into account the amount of volume that's coming out of any of those sources. It's just on a numeric basis. But I still didn't understand with the metros, I know we have trouble with Waterloo because of the lack of time that the UV exposure has to work, but that's still a massive non-compliance for across all 4 of them. I just was kind of stunned by that, and I didn't understand what I was seeing.
Yeah, I can. It is a lot of data on that table. I think the thing that you're hitting there, Councillor, is the monitoring rules are around the standards. As you can see, the metro ones, there's only a 4% error in those. The assurance rules are things like, do we have a code of practice in place that assures that all people working on our pipe, they're the kind of the broader, more wider reaching assurance rules as opposed to the actual technical rules of making the water. The monitoring rules are very high for the metro, very good. So those type of assurance rules are the ones that are new, and we're developing and we've got a plan in place with Te Mata Arawai to improve. So you'll see that improve. So you shouldn't take assurance rules as the water.
All right. Okay. So that
Sorry,
provides
that
me with
I
quite
could
a
have
lot
made that a lot
yeah,
clearer.
I didn't understand that.
Yep.
But I guess so. The assurance rules are kind of more system-based rules rather than the output of the water that's coming out of the system.
Yeah, a good example would be: have we got a data? Can we track the level of competency and training of each of our single people? And if we've got a shortfall in that, that would be non-compliant for the assurance rules. Okay. Not really impacting the quality of the water, but very important.
But still very important. So I guess what are our plans to improve on those assurance targets? Because at the moment they are looking quite alarming.
Yes, we've got I can just give you assurance that we do have a good plan and we socialise it with the regulator. Yeah. But we can provide more fulsome information about that.
Okay, any other questions? Yes, Representative Rahina August.
Kia ora tātou, and thank you for the update. Just wanted to make a comment about the delivery of the Capital Works program. Great to see your Maroro open, but I just wonder how you communicate out to us that these events are happening. So just, how can Wellington Water let us know these things are going on? Because whilst I represent Taranaki Wānui, I don't work for the iwi. So I don't get to hear this. And I'm just noting for you here that it was actually my team that put that name to o Maroro back in the rā, and it would have been lovely for us to have been there. So it's just a comment of how you can include us. Kia ora.
Anything else from members? No? Okay. We'll move through to the recommendation, which is to receive and note the report. Do I have a seconder? Mayor Baker, any discussion? All those in favour? Oh, Councillor
If you
Connolly.
could just circulate a bit more info about what those rules are and our plan to bring our assurance targets up to, what our targets are and how we intend to get there, that'd be good.
Those against, no. Declare that carried. Okay, meeting schedules for 24-25, page 93. Any questions, issues on this, Mayor Whānau?
Just a couple of questions. Well, a comment one. So personally, I'm finding it difficult receiving papers 3 days before our meetings, and I wanted to explore the opportunity of trying to get them earlier. So that's just one comment. But also just revisiting the comment I made before about the KPI session with officers. Can we formalise that to make sure that it happens?
Do you want to comment on?
I'm unaware of anything being cancelled, but I'm happy to follow up on that because, as I understand it, that work is progressing. Unfortunately, my GM responsible for that area is away at the moment, so but I'm happy to follow up that because, yeah, I recognise that that's critical.
Comfortable with that? Yep. And just, is any comment just on the timings of the papers, Catherine?
We're happy to look at that. It's just a point of working with Wellington water officers to get that timing right.
But certainly take that on board. Okay. Great. So I'll move the meeting schedule I'll move the recommendations 1 through to 4, which agrees to those different dates, confirms the locations, and also has the delegation authority to the chair in consultation with the chief executive of Porirua City around altering dates and times, and just the noting rec at the end there. So I'll move them. Seconder, Mayor Whānau, any discussion? All those in favour say aye. Those against, no. Declare that carried. Item 11, information item, forward work program. Any comments, feedback, suggestions on the forward program? No? Okay, so sorry.
Do you want to put the review?
Yeah, that bit of a gimme. So we will add in that review from the board. Yes, yep. Okay, so that can be captured. So I'll move that the committee receives and notes the forward work program with that addition. Do I have a seconder? Mayor Baker, any discussion? All those in favour say aye. Those against, no. Declare that carried. Questions? I've received no questions. So I move on to item 14, which is exclusion of the public. And I'll move that the public be excluded from the following parts of this meeting. Item 15, appointment of directors to Wellington Water Limited. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Connolly, any discussion? All those in favour say aye. Those against, no. Declare that carried.